crafty now! Ha! Take that! Three-headed jerk! Once until I get my hands on you. Hello there. I guess you just noticed I've been playing a video game, which is actually part of today's subject. Hello, I'm Joe Draghi, and welcome to Godzilla, The King Has Returned documentary, where we take a look at the monster's history from his very early beginnings all the way up to now, and we may delve into his future. So, what is Godzilla? Well, you pretty much know already that Godzilla is pretty much a giant dinosaur that can fire from his mouth. However you say, Godzilla has been with us for 62 years, from 1954 all the way up to the present day 2016, with his recent film, Shin Godzilla. And also there are 29 Godzilla films currently in Japan. However, outside Japan there are 2 American-produced films. And for 62 years you wonder, why has this monster been with us for that long? Well, this is what the documentary was made for, to inform you about this all-time famous monster. Of course, with any movie character that you make, you're bound to find merchandising everywhere. Action figures, video games, comic books, etc, etc. But we're only going to focus on the movies, straightforward history from 1954 all the way up to now. And starting with the original movie that started it all. However, we're going back to the time even before Godzilla ever existed. That's why I'm bringing in my friend Jake to be the host of the wartime segments of this documentary, beginning with Chapter 1, where Japan is in its darkest time in World War II.
At the beginning of the Second World War, the United States remained neutral, aside from resupplying Britain, placing sanctions on supplies of scrap metal and oil to Japan because of the invasion of China in 1937. Japan saw the US, as well as Britain and the Netherlands, a threat to their imperial expansion. The surprise attack on at the US at its main anchorage at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on the morning of December 7, 1941, was intending to destroy the US Pacific Fleet, render the US incapable of interfering with their plans to conquer Asia and the Pacific. The US suffered 2,400 military casualties and civilian casualties, and 21 warships were sunk or damaged, including most of the Pacific Fleet battleships. Rather than knocking out the US out of the war, it infuriated the US President Roosevelt and the US Congress to declare war on the Empire of Japan on the 8th of December 1941. The architect of the attack on Pearl Harbor was Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. He said, rather than rendering the US incapable of interfering with the Japanese imperial ambitions, it would have the opposite effect. I fear all we've done is to waken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. The US would not rest until Japan was defeated and Pearl Harbor avenged. 7th of April 1945, Japan's largest warship, the Yamato, engaged in combat with 3 American vessels. The USS Exeter was an aircraft carrier, Fletcher and Iowa were warships. However, the Yamato was accompanied by 4 other Japanese ships, along with destroyers. With all America's firepower proved too much for the Yamato. Final nail in the coffin was when the Yamato capsized after taking a blow from the front side. Moments later, in its belly, the ammunition room erupted, resulting in a gigantic explosion which ripped the ship in half. America gave a final warning to Japan: if they don't surrender now, they will face a prompt utter destruction. Japan ignored this warning and carried on fighting. On August the 6th and the 9th, the US dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, codenamed Fat Man and Little Boy. Two of the most deadliest attacks in human history. The total of civilians killed in both cities was 146,000 in Hiroshima and 80,000 in Nagasaki, and to 246,000 because even more deaths happened in the aftermath, where most civilians suffered radiation poisoning. Japan couldn't take this high level of destruction anymore. On December the 2nd, Japan survived an instrument of surrender, effectively ending World War II. But to this day, historians are still debating about the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Either America went too far too quickly to end the war, or was it the right thing to do? However, this wouldn't be the only time that America would be the subject of controversy when dealing with weapons of mass destruction. 5 years after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the 1950s, the US and the Soviet Union of Russia were competing for a nuclear arms race to see which one is the most superior over the other. Plus, 2 countries were experimenting with hydrogen bombs that were even more powerful and deadlier than the atomic bombings of Japan. On January 22nd, 1954, a Japanese fishing boat carrying 23 crew members, named the Lucky Dragon. The name will sadly go down to defining irony. The Lucky Dragon left central Japan on the 5th and final Pacific voyage to gather fish in Midway Atoll. On the way, the crew lost most of their trawling nets, so they adjusted the ship's course towards the Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands were used to belong to Japan. Anti-Japanese air raid, the US conquered the territory and turned it into a nuclear testing site. The public was told to stay away from the island and their surrounding areas. The reasons were kept confidential until March the 1st, 1954, that would spark worldwide controversy. The Lucky Dragon was unknowingly sailing towards a H-bomb test. On the early morning of March the 1st, the crew noticed a horrible bright flash in the horizon, and where a massive mushroom cloud appeared. 8 minutes later came a deafening bang. What the crew didn't know, that they had just witnessed the detonation of the world's most powerful H-bomb to ever be detonated by the US, the Castle Bravo, a 15 megaton bomb. When Castle Bravo went off, it ended up being 3 times more powerful than the experts predicted, expecting dangerous levels of nuclear boundaries when the Lucky Dragon got back to Japan about 2 weeks later from March the 1st. When Castle Bravo exploded to the 14th of March, were already feeling the effects of radiation poisoning. 44-year-old Koichi Koyama finally succumbed to the effects of the radiation, while he was hospitalized in Tokyo along with the other crew members on September the 23rd. After spending 7 agonizing months, he died, but his dying words, "I pray that I am the last victim of atomic or hydrogen bombing." Plus, it wasn't just the crew that were affected by the radiation. Even the captured fish containing high levels of radiation. They were quickly buried, being heavily contaminated of radiation. After the bombings of Japan, along with the Lucky Dragon incident, J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, felt eternal guilt for creating a weapon that could wipe out humanity in one swing. In 1965, a television program, he quoted and spawned a movie in 1959 called The Lucky Dragon, which was inspired for the creation of a certain character.